Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Luthier Stories. I am, and I can barely believe I'm saying this, I am in Hawaii on the beautiful island of Maui, and my guest, indeed my host, is the extraordinary talent, Mr. Steve Grimes.
Aloha, Michael. Nice to have you here, and thank you for coming from the other side of the planet.
I did.
It's a long trip.
It is a long trip. It was a long way here. It'll be a long way back, but there is so much we can do.
Absolutely.
In the time that we have together. In this video, we're going to look at 5 milestone instruments in Steve's career. Every journey has a beginning, and Steve's journey began with this.
Well, it's nice to have Amanda back in my hands after having been gone about 30 years. I originally made this for my brother in Seattle, and I borrowed it back from him. February of 2020, I had a celebration party for the 1000th instrument, and I had a display in one of the ballrooms of 42 of my instruments, including numero uno, which was this little baby, which was what changed everything for me. At the time, I was working for Boeing, thinking that was my path in life I was started as a draftsman, and I'd been through school in engineering, and I thought I was going to work my way up and be a mechanical engineer at Boeing. And then a mandolin came into my life, and I made what was loosely a copy of a Martin mandolin, which I had repaired one, and I got to make some measurements and some dimensions. I hadn't really quite grasped the concept of symmetry. As I look at this instrument, it's a little brutal, but it's numero uno. It's the first one.
Well, I've seen plenty of people's first instruments, and the fact that it's intact, let alone playable, is...
It's intact. I don't know if it's... Somebody worked on it. These are not the original tuners. There's some screw holes out of place and things like that. But it plays. It's a loud little bugger. And it's a wall hanger. For me, I mean, it's just really a pleasure to look at it and to realize that kicked me into gear. And it actually made me quit my job at Boeing.
Wow.
And I started building in 72. This might seem a little bit laughable, but it's what you'd expect for number one. But it got me started, and here, 1,090 instruments later, I can look at it and go, hey, I'm proud of it. It looks like it's made from scraps in my shop. There's a curly maple, Western curly maple sides, a somewhat curly maple back. There's some curl in there. What I think this is just what I had, and what appears to be a Sitka spruce top, an ebony fingerboard, a inexpensive tailpiece that was available, I guess, in those days, and it's been played and beat up pretty well. Which is always a good sign.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What was the response when you shared your decision to take a different direction, Steve?
Well, of course, my friends they said, great, if you're doing something that you love. My mom had a different take on it. She thought I was throwing my education away.
Right.
And she just saw me as being an engineer and living in suburbia and having 2.3 kids and living the American dream. And I told her that I was going to be making mandolins and that I had quit my job at Boeing. She was appalled at that decision. And she said, what are you going to do? You're going to stand on the street corner selling medallions. I said, well, no, Mom, mandolins. She goes, whatever. What are you going to do? Throwing your education away. So it took many years for her to finally see that there was some validity to what I'd chosen to do. And she became proud of me for carving my own path rather than doing a predetermined vocation. The idea was, at that time, that I was going to name them like hurricanes.
Oh, right.
Amanda, Patrice, Claudia, Denise. And in fact, I named my company Amanda Lynn Company.
I see.
It's a bad pun, but at the time I thought it was a good idea. And then I thought I would can the idea of naming them names because what do you do when you get to 26?
Yeah.
27 is like, okay, aardvark? I don't know. It's not a very good name unless it's a cherango.
Yeah, well, yes.
No, they're
that's
out of armadillos. Yeah. That's another possible name for them. Anyway, so I went with numbers after that. This is a double sound hole flat top steel string. I make them in nylon as well. But I was introduced to this design by Keola Beamer, a master slack key player here in Hawaii back in, I think, '89. And he brought one into the shop that needed some work. And I got to look inside and have it for a couple of days. And I found it to be a little bit tight.
Right.
A little bit should be removed from that sentence. It was very tight. And I felt like I could make one that was more open, which if you're tuning down to C in the bass, would be helpful. So I just asked Keola if he would give me his opinion. And he gave me his opinion for the last 30 years. So he's been a consultant for me in the construction of these guitars. He got me started. He lent his name to the model, the Beamer model. And it's a wonderful design. It's different from a center sound hole guitar. Not better. It's just vastly different. When you have a sound hole in the middle, a sound hole is a spot that has no strength to it. It's a hole. So it has to have heavy bracing to withstand the pull of the neck, which is pulling up right in front of it.
Right, yeah.
Trying to basically push the top down at that point. By splitting the area of that hole and moving it to the sides of the fingerboard, you open up more real estate of the soundboard.
These two holes together, their combined area, is it
4
roughly...
inches.
It's the same size as the sound hole would have been? Oh, wow.
Yeah. There are
Fantastic.
a little under 2 3/4 inch, but the area adds up to about a 4-inch sound hole. And the upper bout of an instrument is not that helpful to the overall tone. There are people that will argue that it's competitive with the lower bout. Anyway, it gives you this speaker, this larger speaker, which is better able to reproduce lower tones not in terms of volume, but in terms of richness. And so when you tune down to D in the bass or C in the bass, you can get that basudo, that low sound that you'd expect in a 16-inch guitar. And this is a 15-inch guitar. So it's very useful for certain things, especially if you do, like you do, a lot of dad-gad tunings.
Right, yeah.
And you don't need to get a big box with a lot of depth to get richness in the bass.
Well, that was certainly something I noticed. And it's really responsive to changes in hand position, but also slightly different angles of the thumb.
Well, the person that borrowed it the most was Walter Becker.
Right.
Now, he's mostly known for electric guitar, but he used acoustic guitar quite a bit. And he would always stop by here. His studio was a few miles out the road.
Right.
And he would stop by here and borrow this particular guitar. I made this in 2004. It's all scratched up, but it's my recording and gigging guitar when I go out and play. But Walter would borrow it, and he would mic it with a little pencil mic here and another one back here, and did not get the woofiness, the boomy sound and distorted boomy sound from the disruption of sound moving with the hand moving directly over that column of air.
A couple of days ago, I spent some time with this instrument, and I recorded it, and the mics were in exactly that position, and I love
That's the sweet spot that you found as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, it has other advantages. I was mentioning to a friend that, if you play it in your lap like this, the reason I went with this design is that it's just fits your beer can. So it's a cup holder beer can when it's played like this. You get into trouble. You get into trouble if you play it in a normal position. This particular guitar has Carpathian spruce top, one of my favorite spruces to use. Hawaiian koa wood on the sides and back. And this is particularly nice piece of just very, very uniform perpendicular curl. I'm partial to from the days of seeing these old beautiful Martins, and that was, I think, their wood buyer looked for that. None of the real wild stuff that you find a lot these days. It was all from the trunk of a very large tree, not root ball or not crotch curl or anywhere else. It was just very, very uniform. And I was lucky enough to live here and all these years and to be in the center of koa land and to have some of this wood to use. Well, we're standing next to a very healthy looking specimen of a young koa tree. I'm not an arborist, so I can't tell you how many years this has been above ground, but I would guess about 10 or 15 years. And I can also tell you what particular species of the 5 species of koa that this one is. I can tell you that it's beautiful. I've been told that what looks like the leaf is not actually the leaf. It is part of the flower. And you have these little seedlings here. It's very common for koa to get this growth on the trunk in the bark that turns orange. And it's a beautiful rusty color. I almost want to hug it. This particular guitar is a 17-inch Jazz Laureate model. It's a totally acoustic archtop.
Right.
It has a fairly unique feature in that it has koa, carved koa back and sides, and a koa neck, which is not on every instrument. It's not quite as stable as Honduras mahogany, but with 2 graphite splines on either side of the truss rod, it's I've done many of them with no problem at all. It's so beautiful. I have found koa to be, for an archtop guitar, extremely responsive and more complex. Right. It has a broader spectrum of tonality than any kind of maple I've ever used. To some people, that's not what they are looking for. The jazz guys are looking for purity and the fundamental note, and not its complex overtones and things like that. They're looking for a more flatter response. But the koa is a brighter wood, but it gives you the option. You can always reduce brightness outboard or when you're recording. If it doesn't exist, you can't really add it.
Exactly.
So it's I found it to be an exceptional wood. I've tried walnut as a back and sides, all kinds of species of maple, mahogany. I made and that was a wonderful sounding guitar. The mahogany one is very, very warm and also very pure, like kind of like maple. But the koa has a broader spectrum, and it gives you more. It's like a brand new set of strings on your guitar, round wound strings. It's brighter, and 2 months later, you're down to the what would be, I would call, maple. That simple, straightforward, just the note.
Right.
Just the note, ma'am.
When did you build the first Jazz Laureate, Steve?
I think I built it in 1996. I started that model.
Right.
And most of them were maple in those days. It wasn't until the early 2000s I had quite a bit of dimensional koa lumber, 2x10. So I started experimenting with carving the koa backs and seeing what they sounded like. I also do on the archtops something that not a lot of archtop builders will do, and that's I aim for a lower bridge height. And the lower bridge height cuts the downward pressure on the top almost in half. Just going down to just 13/16, just over 3/4 of an inch, compared to a bridge height of, say, 1 1/8 inch, you cut the downward pressure on the top by almost half.
Well, what are the effects on the way that you carve the top? Does that mean you can go lighter?
You can make everything lighter.
Wow.
So I found that the acoustic properties of the guitar are much more to my liking. I don't make the arch as high.
Right.
I don't make the top as thick. I don't make the braces as beefy. So the whole equation is lowered. The bridge on this one is just shy of 7/8 of an inch. So there's not a tremendous amount of downward pressure. When you have the downward pressure, you need to support it or your top will go sway back over the years. The resulting tone from a high bridge with lots of downward pressure is very, very cutting. It really projects. Nowadays, in the old days, that was necessary.
Right, it's what people wanted.
Right, you had to cut through. You're part of the rhythm section. And so nowadays, I think that people are more geared toward wanting quality and balance in the tone with richness and roundness and warmth. Those are the adjectives you don't hear that often with archtop guitars. I might also mention this tailpiece that's on this one. This is, what is this wood here? I think it's Santos rosewood and an ebony center. I explained what I needed to Luthier Michael Gurian, and he's a brilliant designer and a very close friend of mine. And Michael, with my outline that I wanted him to start with, he designed this tailpiece that has a removable for quick string changes.
Oh, wow.
The ebony cap slides off. It locks into place with these two little strong magnets that match these magnets in the cap, and then the edges are dovetailed so it cannot pull forward, and you just slide it and it snaps into place, and with strong playing it will not rattle, but it allows you to change strings, and this is anodized aluminum part that actually comes back under this wood and connects to the aluminum tailpiece. This one doesn't have a tailpiece. It has 2 pins that go down into the tail block, which is my new design. I mean, a number of luthiers do it, but it eliminates the need for a tailpiece. It doesn't flex. It doesn't really need to, but it's locked into the tail block. But in the case of a humbucker pickup here, you need to have the strings grounded. So this metal part of the tailpiece connects to the metal pins that go down, which connect to the jack that grounds the tailpiece. Grounds the strings. But this is it's a wonderful tailpiece design. I don't know if I could still say it's in production or not, but I had to show it off because it's a wonderful piece of engineering by Michael Gurian.
The more I speak to people who make instruments, the more I'm convinced that it is a vocation rather than a career. And the love and the passion that goes into it is universal. What can you share with luthiers and players and just people in general about a life as a guitar maker?
You're talking to somebody who had no idea about anything about luthiery. I love to work with my hands, always have. And so I had a small shop in Seattle, and I would do little tables, lamps, just, I wouldn't call myself a furniture maker. I was not that far along. That is an insult to furniture builders. But I worked with wood and made doodads out of wood until Amanda came along, the first mandolin. Well, I didn't have to decide anything. I didn't have to decide, do I like this? No, it takes over. It's something that you could say, you don't choose it. It chooses you. Mm. And it chose me with such power, and there was just not a question. This is just something that's going to take over your passion. There wasn't a lot of passion in working for Boeing. Right. But after I made the first instrument, everything changed. My focus changed. I have a sign on the wall of my shop that says, the greatest accomplishment is to blur the line between work and play. And that speaks to the element of passion. And the better you get at your passion, the more people will find a way to you because they want what you are producing. Mm. And I got better and better at doing luthiery, and I never looked back. I never thought, well, gosh, where would I be? I might have a big house in suburbia and be driving,
Well, you do live in paradise, do you?
I lucked out. And moved to paradise. Yes, I'm happy living here. There are disadvantages in that everything has to come in by air.
Right.
If I want to buy a can of lacquer, I pay way more for the shipping of that can of lacquer than the lacquer itself. And that's true of so many things in this business. But no, I have no regrets about moving to Maui and just putting all my focus into building instruments. I've always written songs.
Exactly.
But I did take a long hiatus from songwriting. They came back strongly in 2004. And since 2004, a lot of my focus has been in songwriting. I have 3 albums of original music, and I have 32 songs that are not on any CD, and I'm going to start releasing them in the next year. It's not a bad split. I play my instruments when I go out and in public and sing my songs. So now I have 2 passions driving me. It's
been an absolute pleasure to play with you.
Well, this was the ulterior motive that I had when I invited you here, Michael, because I've heard you play, and it's just this is a guy I want to play some music with. Yeah. Well, we got to do some recording. I would love to have you on some of my songs.
Sure, we can arrange that.
Who do I talk to? Can you get me through to him?
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
This, believe it or not, is an ukulele. Pronounced ukulele.
Ukulele.
Not ukulele. If you want to sound like a local. No, it's actually from 2 Hawaiian words. Uku, meaning flea or bug. And lele, to jump.
Oh,
so
right.
It had this, in the early cavaquinhos or braguinhos, that were the Portuguese cowboys had, which evolved into the ukulele. It had the sound of a jumping flea, they thought. So hence the name. So this is an ukulele. It's a tenor ukulele with a slightly longer scale, 18, as opposed to the general, the average is 17, the standard, I should say. So this is a body shape that I borrowed, and I fully intend to give it back, to Lyon and Healy. Because I'm building a mandolin that's shaped like a old 20s Lyon and Healy shape with the 2 points, 2 soft points. And so my partner Russell said, why don't we make an ukulele that shape? And I started thinking, it was a brilliant idea. It's not even trying to look like a ukulele, but you have access to the 21st fret very easily, and it's a very pleasing shape. I started making mandolins, and the shape that I made in the early 70s was akin to the early Lyon and Healy mandolins. I just loved the shape. So here we are, 50 years later. Beautiful. And this is, I call it the ukulele, the mutant ukulele. So it's a sinker redwood top, and Brazilian rosewood sides and back with curly koa trim, an oval sound hole, and a stacked bridge. The base is ebony, and then there's some koa mixed in with that, and it's a pull-through bridge in that the strings are fed through from the top, pulled out of the sound hole, tie a knot, pull it back. No need to have a tie block. It's in use a lot these days in ukulele making. It's a beautiful design because it makes the bridge lighter.
Gorgeous. And
it's plenty strong enough so you can shave a few grams of weight off the bridge. I'd say 70% of what we do in here now is commissions. Everything's predetermined. The customer wants this, to fill out a spec sheet, and then Russ and I will just go into the wood room and go, look, this has been sitting there a long time. Let's use this wood. What do we want to make out of it? We just started a Kaulua model double hole guitar, Kokobola sides and back, and a sinker redwood top. Ooh. Just for kicks. This beautiful creature is my 50th anniversary model. I wanted something really different to mark the 50th year. My first asymmetrical archtop was my 40th anniversary model, which was quite different from this. But I wanted to continue into this new realm that I'm getting into, asymmetrical ukuleles, flat top guitars, and archtop guitars. So this is a 16-inch archtop guitar with German spruce on the top, big leaf maple on the sides and back, with curly koa trim, Paduke burl appointments, the center of the pickguard, the outlying areas of the tailpiece, the peg head and the rear peg head veneer are Paduke burl surrounded by curly koa, and the center of the peg head is a raised stacked veneers of wood with ebony, thicker ebony being the top cap, and it's curved, and it sits about 1/8 of an inch above the Paduke burl. This is the heartstrings model.
Beautiful.
I decided to do, I think it's called a rhythm line, a heart rhythm line, showing the beating of the heart at various places. And this instrument's heart beats at 3, 5, 7, 9, 12, 15, and 17, and 19.
Wow.
It got really excited at 12. I think something really excited them. So I did the heart line in 32nd of an inch wide green ripple abalone strips. Which and actually it goes around the body as well. So this is ripple abalone, which I just love using because at every angle it's like curly abalone. And so every angle you shift, a different part of the strip will light up.
There's a chatoyance to it, isn't it?
Yes, there is. And so it's around the body and around the fingerboard as well. So anyway, this is as I said, a 16-inch guitar. Acoustic at this point. I always build with that in mind. The humbucker pickup or whatever kind of pickup is an afterthought, unless it's going to be used primarily as a plugged-in electric guitar. And in that case, the humbucker pickup is usually cut into the top and set into the top. The top is definitely voiced differently if that's going to be the case. But my interest, my focus is how to get a great sounding, rich sounding archtop guitar with balance. It's actually a fairly light and a fairly small 16-inch archtop. 16-inch archtops are one of my favorites, just because they have such a high, sweet high-end sound. When you get up there, it doesn't have that echoey character that an 18-inch archtop will have in the high end. It might not have the Lou Rawls bass response in the lower strings, but it has this real sweet high end.
Steve, imagine that you're at a guitar show and budding luthier approaches you with their second instrument in hand. What advice do you give?
Don't give up. Don't let money, if you can. We all have to make a living. We have to survive. But even if you have to do it at night after a day gig or whatever, don't keep going, because the better you get and more passion goes along with that. The passion increases. 50 years. I can't wait to get in the shop in the morning. And a lot of times in the middle of the night, if I'm not waking up with a new lyric, I'm waking up with a new way to do something. Oh, I could make this tool to make this easier, to make this better. So that's passion. And if you follow your passion, I won't say you can't go wrong. You probably could, but it's probably the best path. And if you need to supplement it to just make ends meet, do that. But it breaks my heart when I hear about people my age, my group of luthiers that I've known for as long as I've been building, hang it up. And it may be because they're burnt out. I can't imagine. It may be because physical restrictions. I had to have this thumb redone. Right. It's back to being 100%, but there are reasons people have to give up after a while. They retire. But to see that brilliance and that talent just put to pasture is tough. And I hope at my age I still have 15 years that my hands say, okay, I'm ready. And my mind, I don't have to worry about my mind. I hope it's still in one piece. But as far as the passion, I don't think I have to worry about that element.
Well, Steve, it has been an absolute pleasure.
It wasn't all yours. I can say the pleasure's all mine, but I think we shared it pretty well.
I think so.
It was great.
Mahalo nui loa, from my point of view.
I would say you're welcome, but I don't know how to say that in Hawaiian. I don't know if they have that in Hawaiian.
It may not be a concept. I think you just say thank you and that's enough.
You say mahalo, mahalo.
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 Yeah.
E tu, Brute.
And thank you to you for watching. This has been another episode of Luthier Stories. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay tuned. And aloha!
Very well done.